Picture this. You are standing in the imperial chamber. The air is thick with incense and the low murmur of prayers. Silk tartans billow in the evening heat. Outside, beyond the palace walls, the city holds its breath. She is dying. You watch the physicians bow their heads. The priests circle her bed, chanting words older than the dynasty itself. Her face is pale, motionless. Her breath, if there is any, is too shallow to see. The room is filling with witnesses now. Ministers, generals, members of the royal family who have been waiting for this moment longer than they would ever admit. You notice something. Her hand. It rests on the silk coverlet, fingers slightly curled. No tremor, no twitch, too still, too perfect. One of the priests leans close to her lips, checking for breath. He pauses. Then he nods. She is gone. The room erupts in ritual mourning. Robes are torn, hands are raised. The empire has lost its empress. But you saw her hand. And in that stillness, you realize something they do not. She chose this. Her name was Wu Zetian, though for a time, history tried to erase even that. By the year 690 AD, she had done what no woman in Chinese history had ever done. She ruled the Tang dynasty, not as consort, not as regent, but as emperor. She changed the dynasty's name. She rewrote the ancestral tablets. She declared herself the living incarnation of the Buddha Maitreya. And the empire's most powerful men wanted her dead. Generals whispered in shadows. Confucian scholars denounced her in coded texts. Her own sons plotted in exile. The aristocracy, stripped of their privileges, sharpened their knives in silence. For 15 years, she held them off. But by 705 AD, she was in her 80s. Age was the one enemy she couldn't outmaneuver. She knew what they were waiting for. One mistake, one moment of weakness, one illness. By the time she staged her death in 705, Wu Zetian had already spent decades learning how to rule without being seen. First as a concubine in the shadows of the imperial harem, then as an empress consort pulling strings behind her sickly husband, then as a regent controlling her sons. She had been practicing invisibility her entire life. So when the moment came, she gave them what they wanted. She withdrew from public view. Reports spread through the capital. The Empress was gravely ill. Physicians were summoned. Prayers were offered. The palace entered mourning protocols even before her death was announced. And then, quietly, carefully, she died. Or so the records say. But here's what the official histories don't tell you. Wu Zetian did not die in 705. She vanished. And from that moment forward, every edict, every military order, every political purge that followed bore her fingerprints, but never her name. The question is not whether she survived. The question is how. How do you rule an empire when the empire believes you're dead? Faking a royal death is not like faking your own disappearance in a provincial town. It requires precision, complicity, a network so loyal that they will carry your secret to their graves. Wu Zetian had built that network over 50 years. She had placed her spies in every ministry. Her loyalists commanded the palace guard. Her Buddhist allies controlled the temples, and the temples controlled the people's faith. The death was announced with all the ceremony the empire expected. The body, wrapped, anointed, prepared for imperial burial, was placed in the tomb with full honors. But the woman who entered that tomb was not Wu Zetian. Some historians believe it was a body double, a servant or concubine who resembled her, dressed in imperial silk and positioned in state. Others suggest the coffin was sealed empty, the rituals performed over an absence. What matters is this: the court believed it, the generals believed it, her enemies finally exhaled. She was gone, and that's when her real reign began. At first, her control was invisible even to those who enforced it. Edicts continued to flow from the palace, but now they were issued in the name of her son, Emperor Zhongzong, whom she had installed as a puppet decades earlier. except the orders didn't sound like him. They had her cadence, her ruthlessness, her uncanny ability to predict rebellion before it happened. Ministers who questioned the new policies found themselves reassigned to distant provinces. Generals who hesitated received visits from palace eunuchs, men who had served Wu Zetian since she was a concubine. The message was clear. She was watching. But how? Through intermediaries so carefully chosen that they became extensions of her will. Chief among them was a woman named Shangguan Wanner, a poet, scholar, and political strategist who had been Wu Zetian's confidant for years. Wanner never claimed power. She simply suggested, advised, whispered into the emperor's ear at the precise moment a decision needed to be made. And somehow, those suggestions always aligned with what Wu Zetian would have wanted. But intermediaries are vulnerable. They can be bribed, tortured, turned. So Wu Zetian built a second layer, the orders that arrived with no sender. Sealed letters appeared in the chambers of governors, generals, tax collectors. They bore no signature, no imperial seal, just instructions, specific, detailed, impossible to ignore. At first, officials dismissed them, but then strange things began to happen. A governor who ignored such a letter found his rival promoted within days. A general who defied an unsigned order discovered his troops had been quietly reassigned. It was as if the empire itself had a memory, and that memory belonged to someone who no longer existed. If stories like this matter to you, stories history tried to erase, consider subscribing. We uncover the power structures they didn't want you to see. The court began to obey orders from ghosts, because disobedience meant facing something far worse than an emperor's wrath. It meant facing her. But Wu Zetian's greatest weapon was not fear, it was faith. For decades, she had cultivated a relationship with the Buddhist monasteries. She had funded temples, commissioned statues, declared herself a bodhisattva. She understood something the Confucian scholars did not. The people do not follow power, they follow belief. And so, even in death, she ruled through the temples. There was one monastery in particular, high in the Zhongnan Mountains, far from the capital, where travelers reported something strange. A single-chamber stone, always guarded, always occupied. Monks traveled between this monastery and the provinces, carrying divine prophecies, messages that always seemed to support the policies of the court. Abbots delivered sermons that framed rebellion as a sin against the cosmic order. And in that remote mountain chamber, there were whispers of an old woman who still gave counsel, a woman who knew the secrets of emperors, a woman who had once ruled the world. No one called her by name, but everyone knew who she was. Every order that left that chamber arrived at the palace weeks later as if divinely inspired. Every political shift seemed to echo decisions made in that sealed stone room. The empire had a hidden heart, and it beat in the mountains. Here is the truth they don't tell you about absolute power. It is a cage. Wu Zetian had survived assassination, rebellion, betrayal. She had outlasted emperors, generals, and her own children. She had built an empire in the shadows, but she could never leave the shadows. She could not walk through the palace gardens she had once designed. She could not attend the court she had once commanded. She could not even hear her own name spoken aloud without risking exposure. Her existence had become a rumor, a ghost story, a conspiracy theory whispered by those who refused to believe she could ever truly die. And in that erasure, she lost something far more valuable than a throne. She lost her face, her voice, her presence in the world. Imagine it. You control an empire, but you cannot claim it. You shape history, but you cannot be part of it. You are the most powerful person in the world, and you are completely alone. Every decision she made had to pass through layers of intermediaries, each one a potential point of failure. Every order she gave risked exposure. Every moment of her survival depended on the loyalty of people who might betray her for a single promotion. In that stone chamber in the mountains, she had everything she needed: food, scrolls, reports from across the empire. But she had no mirror, because the woman she had been, the Empress who had rewritten history, who had declared herself a living Buddha, that woman was dead, and the woman who remained had no name. She could trust no one, not even herself. But the cruelest enemy Wu Zetian faced was not a general or a rival. It was memory itself. Because here's what happens when you erase yourself to survive. History erases you, too. Within a generation, the official chronicles began to rewrite her reign. The Confucian scholars, the ones she had spent a lifetime suppressing, returned to power. And they did what scholars always do to women who defy them. They turned her into a monster. The histories called her a usurper, a witch, a seductress who destroyed the Tang dynasty through lust and treachery. They erased her policies, her reforms, the decades of stability she had brought to the empire. And the shadow reign, the years she spent ruling after her death, was written out entirely. Because if she had never truly died, then she had never truly ruled. And if she had never truly ruled, then she could be forgotten. This is the final assassination, not of the body, of the legacy. Wu Zetian survived emperors, generals, and priests, but she could not survive the men who wrote the histories after she was gone. And so the woman who once declared herself the incarnation of Buddha became, in the official record, a footnote, a cautionary tale, a woman who reached too far and paid the price. The irony is unbearable. She faked her death to protect her power, but in doing so, she gave history permission to kill her for real. We live in an age obsessed with visibility. Power today is measured in followers, in headlines, in the ability to command attention. We are taught to matter, we must be seen. But Wu Zetian understood something we've forgotten. Visibility is a vulnerability. She ruled longer than almost any woman in history precisely because she was willing to disappear. She understood that survival sometimes requires sacrifice, not of the body, of the self. And yet we must ask, what does it cost to live as a ghost? To have power without recognition, to shape the world without being remembered, to choose survival over legacy. Wu Zetian made that choice, and for a time it worked. But history does not reward women who hide, it rewards men who shout. And so she was erased, not by her enemies, but by the historians who came after, by the scholars who could not imagine a world where a woman ruled, so they simply wrote her out of it. Today we excavate her story from fragments, from whispers, from the gaps in the official record where her name should be. We piece together the shadow Empress, and in doing so, we confront an uncomfortable question. How many other women have we erased simply because they refused to die on command? Wu Zetian faked her death to rule a shadow empire, but the real tragedy is not that she disappeared, it's that we let her. Power without visibility is survival, but survival without memory is extinction. And in the end, history decides which one you get.